What's going on, guys, and welcome back to some Yooka-Laylee news and updates. As you may have noticed, a brand new Yooka-Laylee trailer has been revealed, and I kept wondering this whole time, when are we gonna get a new trailer? And the time has come, finally. Now the video is titled E3 2016 Trailer. Now were they planning on showing this trailer during the event, or are they planning something completely different for E3? Are we gonna get more stuff or something like that? But anyways, guys, we pretty much got an awesome trailer right now. That's something. So the point of this video is to give you guys an in-depth analysis. With that being said, let's just jump right into it. The trailer starts off with the Playtonic logo. Now this quickly reminded me of the old Rare logo back on the Nintendo 64. I don't know if you guys remember, I don't know if you guys have ever played Banjo-Kazooie, but you probably know what I'm talking about. Now once the music started playing in the background, it quickly reminded me of Mr. Patch from Banjo-Tooie. I mean, the music is very similar. Grant Kirkhope, who worked on Banjo-Kazooie soundtracks, is also working on Yooka-Laylee, so the soundtrack is pretty nostalgic, guys. And if I'm not mistaken, David Wise is also working on Yooka-Laylee. He produced music for Donkey Kong back in the day. Alright, so the gameplay starts on Shipwreck Creek. Now the name of this world was confirmed by Gavin Price on the PlayStation Access channel, and by the looks of it, it looks like a pirate ship kinda, and Shipwreck Creek is their home. Notice the barrels, notice the green crates. Barrels are purple, crates are green, and we can assume they represent Yooka and Laylee. Notice the butterfly. Now in my previous video, I mentioned that the butterfly is basically Yooka's health. Well, Yooka and Laylee's health, I mean. And are those the butterflies we're supposed to consume for health? I'm not too sure, we haven't seen anything like that. The visuals look absolutely stunning. I mean, Playtonic Games is doing an awesome job with the Unity system. The game overall is just beautiful. Next, the trailer moves on to Tribal Stack Tropics, the introductory world. And just by looking at the background, it just shows how much the world looks massive. It looks pretty huge. And like I said, it looks absolutely beautiful. Now, we've seen screenshots of this cloud twice, and it kind of looks pissed. I'm gonna assume it wants water seeds or splash berries. We still don't know. I'm gonna assume that if we give it splash berries or water seeds, the cloud's gonna be happy. I don't know if you've noticed, but right before Yooka jumps onto the top platform, we can notice double jump. And the jump itself looks pretty simple. No backflips, no front flips. Is there an ability that will allow Yooka to jump a lot higher? Could we buy that move from Trouser perhaps? Who knows? Next, we finally get the chance to see the power meter. However, we still don't see the health bar. We'll see that later on. Now it's kind of cool they went with the theme of Yooka and Laylee, purple and green. And we can notice Yooka rolling, but it uses power. And according to Playtonic, the power meter can be increased, as well as the player's health. Nothing's been revealed regarding maximum health or maximum power, but we'll find out sooner or later. Previously, I mentioned that tonics, which is another collectible, help reduce power. What do they look like exactly? We'll find out later on, maybe, I'm not too sure, but I think I do know what tonics look like. Now guys, if you've played Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, don't the icons remind you of those games? Like Banjo with Kazooie on the top left corner? I don't know, this game is like pure nostalgia. Well, it's being developed by Rare employees, so there's that. Okay, remember in my last video about the floating water in the air? Anyways, those are apparently hidden platforms, and by going through the rings, gliding through them, they appear. Now Laylee also has a sonar ability which makes invisible platforms appear. I wonder when that will be used. We see some ladybugs just standing there. I'm gonna assume that this is a challenge. And about the tonic I mentioned earlier, I think the glowy thing that's blue, that's probably a tonic. And according to Playtonics, collecting tonics are pretty difficult. And since Yooka and Laylee collected this item through a challenge, we can probably assume that that's actually a tonic. Next, you know what's awesome, guys? Yooka breathing fire. Now that's very impressive, that's cool. And remember in my previous video we saw Yooka standing next to the cloud and he was like glowing blue? If Yooka is glowing orange and blowing fire in this scene, I'm gonna assume that if it consumes fire or ice, he turns either orange or blue. This kind of thing was introduced in Banjo-Tooie. In Banjo-Tooie, we could shoot fire eggs, ice eggs, and I like how Playtonic took that and completely changed the concept. Like they say, it's a mix of old and new. The game has a lot of new mechanics, but at the same time, it reminds us of how much we loved the old classics on the Nintendo 64. How exactly is Yooka supposed to consume fire? Well, let's look at Clara. Clara is basically in a pot of fire, and I guess that's how Yooka can breathe fire, by consuming fire that's around Clara. Since Yuka can also consume ice, is there another version of Clara, maybe a brother, maybe a cousin or friend, whose theme is basically ice? Maybe, maybe not, but we'll probably find out soon enough. Notice how we get these smoky, cartoony effects when Yuka's hitting enemies. That's pretty cool. Now the question is though, how long does the fire last? I mean, we don't even see the power meter being used. Is there like a certain time limit? Is it unlimited? It's probably not unlimited unless we unlock an ability which gives us infinite power, and we probably might be able to unlock that in the very end. Okay, so Kartos being German has been confirmed. And I'm gonna try to read what it says on the back, alright? Mein Kart ist ihr Kart. And that basically means, my cart is your cart. Isn't that sweet? Judging by the background and all, I think this is on Tribal Stack Tropics. Now Yuka and Laylee are on a cart, right? Is there button mashing involved to move the cart? We're not too sure. I remember in Banjo-Tooie we had to like button mash A and B to like move the cart. And what does button mashing A and B remind us of? Canary Mary. So far it seems like we can control Kartos simply by jumping. And once we land, we accelerate. Now the trailer moves on to Yuka and Laylee transforming. In my previous video, I think I was pretty much close. I mentioned that Yuka and Laylee probably transported somewhere since there was the platform and the explosion effects in the back. But it seems like Dr. Puzz will just be around the world somewhere. Basically, she won't be hidden. Pretty much every non-playable character in this game will want something in return, so we'll need to give some sort of tokens to Dr. Puzz, and we don't know what they look like yet. We finally see Trowser in 3D, and for a brief moment we can hear his gibberish. Next, the trailer moves on to the Icy World. We still don't know the name of this world, but we'll probably find out soon enough. Yuka and Laylee are sliding down ice. We actually had a screenshot of this like a short while ago. For a brief moment we noticed like this cave looking area. Since there's light on the other side, I don't think we'll be exploring a cave. Anyways, let's just move on. Now, we see Yuka holding on to Laylee. Laylee's flying in the scene if I'm not mistaken. And if you notice, it's consuming power. And if you've noticed, flying, we have Yuka holding one arm. And here's the difference between flying and gliding. We notice Yuka holding on to Laylee with only one hand, and this is during flying. And when he's gliding, he holds on to Laylee with two hands. Do you think the game will have a night and day system? I don't know. But the Icy World, compared to the other worlds, is during nighttime. And for a very brief moment, we notice Laylee in the sky, in the form of stars. Wait a sec, didn't we have nighttime in the opening world in the old trailer? Maybe the game does have a night and day system. If it does, that's pretty cool. Then again, that old trailer was just a concept, so only time will tell. Okay, the trailer moves on by showing us a brand new ability. Yuka stands on the ground, and this huge sphere of energy just appears and basically knocks out enemies. Notice an enemy wearing a hat. Now, I don't know, is that hat familiar? Oh, and yes, this ability does use power, so all the abilities in the game will probably use power. Okay, next. During this scene right here, one thing reminded me of Banjo-Kazooie. Look at Yuka and Laylee's move. Doesn't their move remind us of the Beak Buster from Banjo-Kazooie? Remember, we had Banjo flip backwards and Kazooie smack the floor? And since we have X-Rare employees working on Yooka-Laylee, it makes sense. When I first watched the trailer, I was like, no, come on, that's totally Banjo-Kazooie. Now, the difference between the two abilities, they do look similar, but there's a tiny difference. In Banjo-Kazooie, Kazooie remained in the backpack. In Yooka-Laylee, we have Laylee jumping in the air and smacking onto Yuka. Next, we see Yuka fighting this brand new enemy. And notice how Yuka is glowing orange during this scene. At first, I thought that he would turn orange when the player would take damage. But now, he's glowing throughout the whole thing. Does it represent infinite health somehow? Cause look, we don't even see the health bar. What do you guys think? Maybe some of you might say, hey, it's the fire ability. But for the fire ability, we have like these edges on Yuka's head glowing orange, depending on ice or fire. Come to think of it, maybe it does represent Yuka taking damage. Now, what's the right word I can use? Maybe Yuka didn't have enough time to respawn? That's why he kept going orange? That could maybe explain it. Let's move on. Now we see Yuka and Laylee swimming underwater. Now, judging by the honeycomb looking doors underwater, I'm gonna assume this is part of Capital B's lair. And this is probably the last level. But here's the weird thing. Where's the breathing underwater meter? We don't see anything on screen. Is there like an infinite ability we can purchase? Well, who knows, the game is still in production, they still probably haven't added the meter. Maybe this could be part of the new Game Plus mode where you already have all your abilities unlocked, such as breathing underwater for an unlimited amount of time. Next screenshot. We see Yuka and Laylee in Capital B's lair if I'm not mistaken. We also see this honeycomb door further away. And what's cool about this scene is that that once Yuka's tongue comes into contact with a particular material, Yuka's body changes into that material. And for example, in this scene, Yuka turning into metal makes him immune to the smoke, blowing from the rock structures. The trailer now moves on to the arcade room, and this arcade room is accessible via the main menu. We notice Retro 64s, and what else do we notice? Nothing major, we just see insert coin to continue on the screens. That's pretty much it. And I'm guessing we have to give Retro 64s play tokens to play the games. Or insert them in the machine, of course. Remember, these arcade games can be playable with up to 4 players. Moving on, we see Yooka-Laylee invisible. They're probably inside Capital B's lair. Look at the walls, we see honeycombs, we see books in the back. Now Yuka also has a camouflage ability. Could this perhaps be camouflage? Well, camouflage would make Yuka turn into the colors of the environment. Maybe it's camouflage, maybe it's invisibility. But I'm gonna go with invisibility. By becoming invisible, we can avoid the lasers. Next scene, we have Yuka shooting a bunch of ice balls, and we can notice Yuka glowing blue. Now, did he consume frost berries or ice seeds? Both were mentioned, but which one is which? We don't know yet. Is one confused with the other? Are they two different things? We still have to find out. Doesn't the rock structure look a bit familiar? It looks like a face. It looks like the artwork we got a while back. What is Yuka shooting at exactly? I think he's shooting at large rubies. And like I mentioned before, a lot of non-playable characters will want something in return, and these gems are probably one of them. Remember in my last video I mentioned races, puzzles, and stuff like that? In this scene, we have a race. And by the looks of it, that character, that pink looking cloud, is probably Nimble, the character who will challenge us to a race. And by the looks of things, Yuka has to roll through those rings. Not only will those rings lead the way, but they'll also require us to go through them to win the challenge. But we have to be careful. By rolling, we're consuming power, and that's what's basically going to make the race a bit challenging. Plus, for speedrunners, it might be a lot more difficult. Remember, we can expand the power meter. Speedrunners usually go through the game as fast as they can. If they don't collect enough collectibles, they won't be able to expand the power meter. The smaller it is, the quicker you'll slow down. Next scene, we see Yooka-Laylee in an icy world again, and apparently we'll have to go up a slippery track. Not only do we have to be careful not to slip, but we also have to keep our eye on the power meter. We can notice walls surrounding the area. Are we inside of a castle of some sort? Maybe not a castle, maybe a sort of cavern, a cave. Judging by the way the place looks, it looks like we'll have to make our way to the top. And if the whole place is slippery, then this part of the game might be very challenging. You know, if we slip and fall, we'll have to start all over again. And guess what? We finally get the chance to see the health bar, a bunch of butterflies. If we can expand the power meter, that means we can also increase health. In the beginning of the video, I mentioned butterflies flying around. Are we supposed to collect those for health? Probably. The trailer now moves on to Tribal Stack Tropics, and we see Yooka-Laylee gliding. And guys, I gotta say, the game looks impressive. The worlds look huge, the scenery is stunning, and despite the game having only 5 worlds, the worlds should have a lot of gameplay value, so I'm not gonna worry about that. I've noticed something, guys. The difference between gliding and flying is that flying uses power and gliding doesn't use anything. It's just Yuka and Laylee making their way down. If we focus a bit more on this screenshot, we can notice stuff going in circles. I'll zoom in a bit. Is that a Pagey? Are those birds? There's actually a screenshot with a close-up. Here it is. Could that possibly be a Pagey? I don't know, aren't Pageys supposed to glow? We'll probably find out one day. Alright, for the release date. This game was originally planned to get released around October 2016, but now the game has been postponed and is getting released in 2017. I'm not mad, I'm not upset. Think of it this way, they have more time to polish the game. I'm not saying the game looks terrible, the game looks awesome. I'm just saying. According to the trailer, the game is getting released in early 2017. Early, I'd say, is between January and probably April, so the game should release around that time. For the official day and date release date, I guess we'll still have to wait. Before I move on, let's go back to the screenshot. We see these glowing flowers. Could those be the frostberries perhaps? Or the ice seeds? Nah, it's too soon to tell. Or in the end, those are just flowers. Okay, now let's move on to my favorite part of the trailer. Yooka-Laylee talking gibberish. Oh wow, this just reminds me of my childhood in Banjo-Kazooie. I've missed it. First thing I've noticed is Yooka-Laylee's logo spinning and zooming out. Doesn't this remind us of the Jiggy back in Banjo-Kazooie? The exact same thing happened in that game. We had this Jiggy transition, And about the jiggies, notice in one of the drinks on the back we see a jiggy. I just love how they're referencing Banjo-Kazooie. Not only that, notice the magazine. It's a pants magazine. It says, "and why you should wear them." They're probably giving us a reference to Mr. Pants from Banjo-Tooie. Or they're probably giving us a reference of Yooka, since you know he's not wearing any pants. I absolutely love their conversation. I mean, Laylee's pretty hilarious. For example, that was rubbish. Where was the brown level? I think brown level is a reference to today's games like realistic graphics, dark colors, very high intense graphical games. And then we get this dialogue. Pfft, you can't trust this lot. It'll probably have car sections by then. Shots fired. But guys, we gotta admit, that dialogue right there is pretty hilarious. Okay, for the gibberish. Laylee sounds pretty adorable. However, Yooka, I was expecting something different. I don't know. Guys, is it just me, or does his voice remind us of this? He sounds like Gruntilda being fused with Tootie in Banjo-Kazooie. Now where could they be sitting? On the left side we noticed that ramp which Yooka rolled on. So this is pretty much Shipwreck Creek, their home. Now about PlayStation Access. There was an interview with Gavin Price and Chris Sutherland. And during the interview we learned a few new things. Not only that, we got some extra gameplay. Now by expanding worlds, we can collect a maximum of 200 quills per world. And according to Playtonic, each world will have 25 pages. About the extra gameplay, we see this timed race, which requires us to go through each ring, and by going through those rings, other rings appear. Here's some extra footage from Shipwreck Creek. It's pretty brief, nothing much to it. Alright, now some of you might get super excited over this. According to the company, Yooka and Laylee will have a co-op mode. I don't know what it'll look like, I don't know which character we can control, but it sounds fantastic. Playing with friends, that's awesome. Not only do we have multiplayer in the arcade games, but we can also play the game co-op. Like, the hype keeps getting real. They just mentioned the word co-op, we don't really know anything about it yet. But guys, it's been confirmed, the game has co-op. That's awesome. Okay, I will leave the link to the trailer and the PlayStation Access interview in the description below. So with that being said, this is it for the video, guys. If you watched the whole thing, thank you. Now, did I miss anything in this analysis? If I did, just mention it in the comments. What do you think, guys? What do you think the co-op mode would look like? Do you think 5 worlds are enough? Do you think the game will be way too short? What do you think of the new Game Plus mode? How difficult do you think the game will be? So yup, I've been Vivi and I'll catch you guys next time. Again, thanks for watching.